This is OwlUp, where learning happens in minutes, not hours. For a deeper journey, explore all our courses at owlup.co. Now, let's dive in. Welcome back to Chapter 2 of Ordinary People, Extraordinary Income, where we're diving into the quote-unquote gold standard and how this legendary monetary system actually worked in practice. We'll break down the mechanics behind what many consider the backbone of historical economic prosperity. Let's get into it. Gold once locked the price of a US dollar to a tiny sliver of metal, and that price didn't officially budge for almost a century. Now, no major currency uses gold, yet central banks quietly hoard it. Why did we break up with gold but still can't quite let it go? In a world of digital wallets and instant transfers, it's easy to forget that money used to be physically tethered to something you could hold in your hand. Yet the echoes of that older system still shape who gets rich, who goes broke, and how crises unfold. Think of the gold-linked past as a set of rules of the game that disciplined governments, investors, and even ordinary savers. Those rules rewarded predictability and punished excess, but they also left very little room for improvisation when things went wrong. The result wasn't just textbook history. It determined which nations industrialized fastest, which families preserved wealth across generations, and which found themselves wiped out when the system snapped. Understanding that legacy isn't nostalgia. It's a way to read today's financial world with the backstage lights suddenly turned on. For ordinary people, those old rules quietly shaped everyday choices. How long it took to save for a home, how risky it felt to start a business, even whether keeping cash under a mattress was wiser than trusting a bank. Underneath the headlines about empires and crises were shopkeepers juggling foreign coins, migrants wiring wages across oceans, and families deciding whether to hold savings in gold, bonds, or banknotes. The tensions we inherited, between safety and flexibility, stability and growth, still surface today whenever inflation jumps, currencies wobble, or a new hard money technology claims it can't be corrupted. At street level, those rules showed up as very concrete trade-offs. Start with wages and prices. Under gold, governments couldn't casually create more money to smooth over trouble. When factories closed or exports slumped, paychecks often had to fall in nominal terms because prices were slow to adjust. That sounds abstract until you picture a miner in 1890 whose weekly wage drops 15%, while his debts stay the same size. His currency hasn't collapsed, but his ability to service what he owes just shrank overnight. In many downturns, you got deflation. Your coins bought more, but the job that earned those coins was on thinner ice. Cross borders and the story shifts again. A merchant in Buenos Aires taking payments from London didn't just care about today's exchange rate. She cared that the rate would still make sense months later when her cargo arrived. The gold link gave her that confidence, so global trade boomed. But when harvests failed or wars loomed, gold flows jerked violently from one country to another. Interest rates jumped, credit tightened, and those same merchants could be ruined by a shock that began thousands of miles away. For savers, the system felt both reassuring and unforgiving. If your grandfather in 1900 tucked away high-grade bonds from a stable country, there was a decent chance your family would still have meaningful purchasing power decades later. But if he trusted the wrong bank, or held deposits in a country that abandoned convertibility under stress, safe paper could become wallpaper with astonishing speed. Governments lived inside a similar vice. To defend their currencies, they raised rates, cut spending, or begged foreign lenders for help. Sometimes that discipline paid off. Investment poured in, railways and factories multiplied, living standards rose. Other times, it meant choosing creditors over citizens, protecting the peg while unemployment soared. For ordinary people, technology quietly changed how all of this was felt. Telegraphs, then cables, then early financial news wires spread price and exchange rate information quickly, letting traders react in hours instead of weeks. Opportunity traveled faster, but so did panic. Think about three neighbors on the same street today, each responding differently when money feels shaky. One quietly buys small gold coins each month from a local dealer, slipping them into a home safe. She's not trying to trade. She's recreating an older habit of storing value in something that doesn't depend on a bank app or government promise. The second neighbor joins a fintech platform that offers gold-backed digital tokens. He never sees a single bar, but his phone shows a balance supposedly linked to metal in a vault halfway across the world. To him, it's the discipline of the past, wrapped in the convenience of now. The third ignores gold entirely and leans into inflation-protected bonds, broad stock index funds, and maybe a slice of Bitcoin. She's betting that diversification and innovation can do more for her future than any single hard asset. All three are, in different ways, reacting to the same question: how do you keep tomorrow's purchasing power from quietly leaking away? The next twist is how those old constraints get rebuilt in code. Stablecoins, tokenized bullion, and algorithmic hard money don't need vault doors or ocean-shipped bars, yet they quietly import similar trade-offs into phone apps. Yield chasers may flock to them the way savers once trusted banknotes, but when redemptions pause or pegs slip, you're suddenly testing whether the promises behind the screen are closer to a sturdy bridge or a painted backdrop waiting to tear. As finance keeps layering apps, tokens, and AI on top of old habits, the real frontier is less gold or not, and more, which constraints do you want built into your money, and who gets to edit them? For ordinary earners, that turns every savings choice into a quiet vote about whose promises and whose breaks you're willing to trust. Before next week, ask yourself, where in my life am I still chasing a gold standard that someone else defined for me, like a perfect career, income level, or status, and what would my own, more honest standard actually look like? When you catch yourself comparing your progress to that old gold standard, pause and ask, what metric would feel more human and sustainable here? Time with people I care about, creative energy, health, or something else? Then, for one decision you have to make this week, about work, money, or achievement, ask, if I stopped performing for the gold standard and chose based on my real values, what would I decide differently today? This was OwlUp, your daily step forward. To keep learning with structured courses and more insights, go to owlup.co. Until tomorrow!